Welcome back to our channel, dear viewers. As a longtime literary critic and devoted viewer who has spent decades watching the residents navigate their remarkably complex lives, I find myself deeply moved by the narrative threads weaving together for the intense weeks of June 22nd through July 3rd. We have watched these individuals evolve from impulsive youths into deeply complicated adults, and now the impending catastrophic collisions promise to test their very souls. Watching these familiar faces grapple with such intense psychological and physical stakes reminds me of the golden eras of daytime television, where every hidden secret carried the absolute weight of the world. The masterful storytelling currently unfolding demands our full attention, as the writers are brilliantly setting the stage for a summer of unparalleled heartbreak and shocking revelations. Let us begin by examining the harrowing and deeply unsettling situation surrounding Willow. The latest spoilers reveal that she will be brutally ambushed in her own home by none other than Jens. When Jens arrives to announce that they have unfinished business, we must look at the immense psychological toll this takes on a woman who has already strayed so incredibly far from her once angelic path. Do we not feel a sense of tragic inevitability here? Willow has been playing a remarkably dangerous game, having previously drugged Jack and found herself cornered by profoundly dark forces. Jens is a man who demands absolute control, and his sudden, terrifying presence in her personal sanctuary completely shatters any fragile illusion of safety she might have desperately clung to. I firmly believe Willow is currently experiencing the terrifying realization that her moral compromises have invited the devil directly to her doorstep, leaving her entirely vulnerable to his manipulative whims. The tragedy surrounding Willow only deepens when we carefully consider the ruthless machinations of Brooklyn and Lucy. These two women are actively teaming up to frame Willow, pushing her directly onto the proverbial hot seat. From a critical standpoint, Brooklyn is operating out of sheer, suffocating desperation. We know she is carrying the crushing, unbearable guilt of being the hit-and-run driver who severely injured Jordan, and she is utterly terrified that this dark secret will destroy her marriage and permanently cost her the adoption of little Phoebe. By eagerly enlisting Lucy, a seasoned veteran of romantic warfare and territorial disputes, Brooklyn is essentially projecting her own terrible sins onto Willow. It is a classic, deeply flawed defense mechanism, yet it is utterly heartbreaking to witness a young woman attempt to destroy another simply to save herself from the consequences of her own disastrous actions. Forced into a horrible, inescapable corner by this elaborate frame-up, Willow will inevitably turn to Harrison for much-needed help. Oh, the bitter, agonizing irony of this specific dynamic. Harrison, who is currently celebrating the joyous prospect of a closed adoption and eagerly building a family, remains completely and utterly oblivious to the sinister shadow games being played around him. When Willow desperately seeks his protection, she is unwittingly playing right into the hands of those who wish to expose their forbidden connection. Michael is already quietly plotting to use their physical proximity to completely destroy relationships, and Harrison is merely a pawn in this grand, tragic chessboard. Will Harrison be able to see through the thick fog of manipulation, or will his innate heroic desire to protect Willow lead to his own devastating downfall? I greatly fear his noble heart will ultimately be his absolute undoing. Shifting our critical focus to the beloved legacy characters who beautifully anchor our town, we see Laura becoming privy to a massive, potentially destructive secret, while Sunny fiercely pressures Ava. Laura has always been the steadfast, unwavering moral compass of our community, a woman who insists on fighting darkness strictly through legal and righteous channels. Learning a dangerous, explosive secret places a heavy, suffocating burden on her capable shoulders. Meanwhile, Sunny is aggressively pulling Ava into a treacherous, highly volatile trap designed specifically for Jens. Ava, who has been confidently and ruthlessly blackmailing Ethan over his hidden paternity secret, suddenly finds herself tightly squeezed by the formidable mob boss. Ava is a brilliant survivor, highly accustomed to operating in the murky, gray areas of morality. But getting roped into a deadly, unpredictable confrontation with Jens might be the one massive gamble she simply cannot afford to lose. The fascinating juxtaposition of Laura and Sonny in this incredibly tense scenario is a true masterclass in complex character study. Laura previously and bravely stopped Sonny from murdering Jens in cold blood, passionately insisting on true justice over bloody vengeance. Now, as Sonny meticulously orchestrates this elaborate, dangerous trap using Ava as bait or leverage, we must earnestly wonder if Laura will feel compelled to intervene once again. Can the established law truly contain a chaotic monster like Jens, or is Sonny ultimately right in his dark belief that some lethal threats can only be permanently eliminated in the shadows? As loyal viewers who have watched their intricate dynamic unfold for decades, we deeply understand that this ongoing ideological war between Laura and Sonny is the very beating heartbeat of the show. Across the globe, another legendary heroine is bravely fighting her own intense battles. Anna is currently residing at a secluded medical facility in France, facing a highly crucial and potentially life-altering meeting with her doctor. Knowing Anna's profound, extensively dark history with the organization, particularly her past psychological torment and manipulation, this current storyline resonates with a haunting, deeply emotional familiarity. The newest spoilers strongly indicate she will make a highly risky, unprecedented move. Could this be her desperate, valiant attempt to finally break free from the invisible, lingering chains that still bind her? While Anna fiercely fights for her personal autonomy in France, we absolutely cannot help but draw heartbreaking parallels to Jocelyn, who is currently suffering a severe, terrifying psychological breakdown while being held captive against her will at the Dark Estate. The generational trauma inflicted by these shadowy, ruthless agencies is a recurring, vivid nightmare that the brilliant writers are exploring with devastating, surgical precision. Speaking of horrifying captivity and stunning betrayal, the volatile situation involving Cassius is rapidly reaching a dangerous boiling point. Cassius, who has been flawlessly masquerading as Nathan and cruelly manipulating absolutely everyone in his destructive path, will soon point Lulu and Dante directly toward the secret hideout where Britt and Rocco are currently staying. This is a staggering, unforgivable act of betrayal. Cassius is clearly playing both sides of the fence, perhaps desperately trying to eliminate his own growing complications. Lulu and Dante, fiercely driven by their desperate, agonizing need to reclaim Rocco, will undoubtedly act on this newly acquired intelligence. However, as observant critics, we must immediately recognize the fatal, glaring flaw in their impulsive, emotionally driven charge. By aggressively moving on the hidden location, they are taking a massive, unprecedented gamble that could easily and inadvertently tip off Ross to their exact whereabouts. The inevitable consequences of this reckless gamble will be nothing short of entirely disastrous for Britt. Britt has been fiercely, beautifully protecting Rocco, forming a deep, profoundly maternal bond with the young boy while constantly on the run from immense danger. When Dante and Lulu suddenly arrive to reclaim him, the resulting chaos will most likely draw the immediate, lethal attention of Ross, putting Britt squarely in the dangerous crosshairs of a completely ruthless killer. The true emotional climax of this specific arc lies within Rocco himself. The spoilers heartbreakingly reveal that the young boy will unleash his absolute, unbridled wrath on Dante and Lulu after absolutely everything goes terribly wrong. Imagine the profound trauma of a sweet child who has finally found a semblance of safety in the protective arms of a fugitive, only to have his biological family completely shatter that fragile sanctuary and essentially bring the terrifying monster right to their front door. It is a profoundly moving, deeply tragic narrative about the true, complicated meaning of safety and unconditional trust. Back at the very heart of Sonny's family, Carly is poised to completely surprise someone with a major, unexpected confession, while her daughter Jocelyn gets into another fierce, screaming argument with Cassius. Carly has always been a fiercely maternal force of nature, a woman who blatantly ignores stern warnings and charges headfirst into the blazing fire for her beloved children. Her upcoming confession might just be the crucial key to finally unraveling the terrifying mystery at the Dark Estate. Meanwhile, Jocelyn's explosive argument with Cassius perfectly highlights her rapidly deteriorating mental state and her desperate, clawing fight for basic survival. Jocelyn has certainly inherited her mother's fiery, unbreakable spirit. But facing a master psychological manipulator like Cassius, while trapped in an absolute hellscape, is pushing her to the absolute, terrifying brink of madness. Will Carly manage to reach her in time? Or will Jocelyn be irrevocably, permanently broken by this horrific ordeal? In another completely fractured corner of the city, Curtis is rapidly spiraling completely out of control. Facing a brutal, unforgiving trial with absolutely no plea deal available for his violent, regrettable assault on Isaiah, Curtis is acting out of sheer desperation and feels entirely cornered. The latest spoilers strongly indicate he will make a catastrophic, entirely wrong assumption, most likely loudly accusing Isaiah of maliciously framing Willow. Curtis has a tragic, well-documented history of going completely overboard with wild, unfounded allegations against Isaiah, largely driven by his own deep-seated insecurities and the immense, crushing pressure of his impending legal doom. By angrily lashing out at an innocent man, Curtis is actively alienating the very people who could potentially support him, causing massive, irreparable fractures within his own family, just as Trina anxiously prepares for her highly anticipated art show. It is incredibly painful to watch a fundamentally good man systematically dismantle his own life entirely out of blinding fear. Returning to the complex web spun by Brooke Lynn, her elaborate, deeply flawed frame-up scheme against Willow is undeniably destined to completely fall apart. The spoilers explicitly warn that she will be forcefully backed into a horrible, inescapable corner by the end of the week. This is the natural, inevitable unraveling of a massive, corrosive lie. Brooke Lynn simply cannot outrun the devastating truth of the hit and run forever, no matter how hard she tries. When her desperate scheme finally collapses, the emotional collateral damage will be absolutely immense. Tracy has strictly demanded her absolute silence, but the unvarnished truth has a funny, persistent way of clawing its way to the surface in our town. Will Brooke Lynn finally find the courage to confess to save Willow from further agonizing torment, or will she selfishly double down and risk losing Harrison and little Phoebe entirely?